Hello, and welcome to this new episode of For Traveling Teens. I am here today with Rilee. Hello, Rilee.
Hello.
Hi. Can you introduce yourself to our listeners?
Yeah, my name is Rilee. I am 12 years old and I am currently in Mexico City.
Oh, my goodness. So, how long have you been in Mexico City for?
About a few days, maybe 5.
So, you've just recently gotten there. Have you been there before?
No, this is our first time.
So, you're settling in, trying to find your bearings.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So, why do you like to travel?
A lot of different reasons. I like to travel so I can meet a lot of new people, so I can eat amazing food, and so I can learn about different cultures.
Awesome. Those are all really great reasons to travel. If you had your pick, if you could travel wherever you went by this mode of transportation, what would it be? Boat, car, train, plane, bus?
Hmm. I feel like with plane, you can go a lot of different places. Like, let's say I wanted to head over to let's say I wanted to go over to China. I can't really take a plane. I can't really take a train
Right,
from the U.S. to China, but I can take a plane there.
right. So do you enjoy flying though?
Yeah, I do enjoy flying. I think when you're on a train, it's a little bit more comfortable. You get to settle in more, I think.
I really enjoy traveling by train myself. Not a big fan of flying, but I do it because, like you said, it's how you get all the good places.
Yeah.
So, how many states, countries, or places have you been to already?
9.
9 countries. Wow. Have you been to any different states in the US?
Mostly just states that my family live in. We went on a little camping trip to what was it? Like Mississippi, Louisiana. No wait. Yeah, like Mississippi and stuff. And we went by car and we camped different places. That's really the only other states that we've been to.
Do you enjoy camping?
No.
I knew we would be best friends, Rilee. I don't care for camping either. No, thank you. Please, no. My idea of roughing it is a cheap hotel. Oh no, no, no. I'm not here for camping. No, thank you. Uh,
Yeah.
I'll do it if I have to, like if it means I get to do some sort of amazing experience. Like we're gonna go to Alaska, and there are some like national parks where the only thing you can do there really to go there at a reasonable amount of time is to camp. So like I'm open to camping for a very short period of time because I have to, not because I want to. So for sure. So why do you think it's important for tweens or teens to travel away from their home area?
Well, when you're at your home area or your home city, you can learn a lot of different stuff, but you can't really learn stuff that you can in different areas. So like I come from the US and a lot of people in the US, they're like, "Oh, Muslims are bad." We went to Turkey, we had an amazing experience there and they were some of the nicest people I've ever met. But if you don't go there, then you might just grow up thinking all these things that the other people around the US think.
Yeah. Yeah. That is very wise, Rilee. I really love that answer. So thank you for sharing that. So, what is your biggest travel dream? If someone said to you, you can go to this, doesn't money doesn't matter, time doesn't matter, where would you go? What would be your dream?
Probably Tokyo, Japan.
Ah, why Tokyo?
Um, I'm in love with the Japanese culture, mostly because I started out watching a lot of anime and reading a lot of manga, and but I've learned so much. Like I've learned about the food in Japan. I've learned I really want to go in the springtime with all the cherry blossoms and everything, because that it's just going to be so amazing and beautiful there.
We have had quite a few young people on the podcast who say that their travel dream is Japan, and it's because they love anime and manga. So this is not a surprising answer to me. It seems like it is very common. I am not, I'm a big nerd about a lot of things, but I am actually not into anime or manga, not because I just never got into it. But I am also very interested in going to Japan, but I would like to go for the cherry blossoms. And we had a layover there, and I really wanted to go to the Hedgehog Cafe where you get to drink tea and pet hedgehogs. Like that's my kind of, that's what I'm here for in this world, is to pet all the animals. So
me and my friend, one time we were on a call, and I was watching this traveling teen podcast, and she said that they are hedgehog cafes in Japan. And she was like, what? And I was like, yeah. So we started looking up all these random cafes, and they have like this one cafe where they dress up dogs to look like pandas. And I was like, okay, this is very interesting. But they have so many cafes. They have like, I think they had like a bunny cafe, a hamster cafe. They have so many crazy cafes.
yeah, see, that's what I would go for. I would meet up with you. I'd be like, you go have manga and anime, and then we'll have tea at every animal cafe in the city.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh my goodness. So let's talk about getting ready to go on a trip. You're preparing for your trip. How much input do you have, or do you like to have, when your family is planning your adventures?
My mom mostly handles all the travels. Like, we know where we're going, but we don't really know much about the city. So when we came to Mexico, the main things that we knew were one of the road closest down here us on Sunday, and that there was a Starbucks cafe nearby. And that was the main things that we really knew about here.
Okay. So, would you like to have more input, or are you happy for mom to just do the planning for you and know that she knows you well enough to pick cool things?
Yeah, we'll have like a meeting of like what we're gonna do in the next year. Like, honestly, we never really after Mexico, we have no clue what we're gonna do. Like, we're gonna either stay here for 2 months, up to 6 months.
Okay.
But I don't really care if I have a lot of input or a little bit of input whenever we travel. It's just I do trust her to pick the places that we want to go. And I'm constantly saying that I want to go to Tokyo. So
just keep throwing that out there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Keep reminding her, hey, when you're planning, we should go to Tokyo for sure.
Yeah.
So when it's time to pack, what are your must-haves? I mean, everybody has clothes and, underwear and whatever, but what are you like, this must come with me on my trips?
Art supplies, not like painting, or I used to like painting and charcoal and stuff. I'm not really into that now. I'm more so drawing random characters with pen or sometimes pencil, but mostly I just want to have a good sketchbook and my carry-on, on the flight, and my pens, my iPad, my phone, and I normally have this one manga book with me, and that's something that I really like to bring.
So what are you looking for in a location? I mean, I know mom does all the planning, but if you could just say, this is what we're going to do every time we go to a place, what do you love to look for? Do you love hiking? Do you love food? Do you love history, beaches, libraries? What are you here for?
Normally I really like checking out all the food that's in their area. I'm not really into huge history museums and that stuff. We're gonna go there, sure, I'll go there, but I'm into really any, mostly just honestly, if I'm being honest, I don't really look forward to different stuff that's there. I'm just while we're here, I'm gonna find this area and I'm gonna fall in love with this area in the place, and I'm gonna go there a lot.
Okay. I like it. So you find kind of just a zone or a neighborhood that you love, and that's where you go and you hang. I love it. Yeah. Very cool. That's a really good way to get to know places. Mr. Steven and I, my husband, he and I both really have found over our time that we don't really love small towns, and we enjoy big cities, but not as much as we used to. we like a like medium to small size city, and we like walking neighborhoods. We like where we can walk, where we can kind of feel like a local, where we can sit at the same cute little, shop or the same little cafe and go to these little places and kind of feel like we live there rather than like we're visiting.
Yeah, that's good.
What about art museums? If you're into sketching and art and things, do you enjoy going to art museums or not so much?
I mean, we went to the Louvre in Paris and it was okay. I wasn't really into all the stuff. Some of the paintings were cool. We found like, I forget what's its name. Like, I was like, I don't know, like it was like the Last Supper or something. But it was like one of like Jesus and all his disciples everywhere. And it was right across from the Mona Lisa. Even though the Mona Lisa is really famous, I wasn't really enthusiastic to see it because it was kind of tinier than I expected and kind of had less detail. So I don't really go to art museums because a lot of times in art museums you'll have these huge old sculptures and paintings, and I just like the new kind of art, just like sketching like whatever you want to sketch, really. Not these huge just sculptures of naked people.
I totally feel you. So I feel a little bit like about art museums like I do about camping. If there's a reason to go there, I will go there. Like the Louvre. We were even in Paris. We still didn't get to the Louvre. We've been to Paris twice now. If I get to the Louvre to see the Mona Lisa and the Last Supper and these other places, excellent. But I am not someone who likes to go out of my way for the art museums. Like if there's some reason to be at the art museum, awesome. And I'm like you, I prefer more modern art to older art. Was just in DC and I went to the portrait gallery, but I literally went to the portrait gallery for the portraits that I wanted to see, which were some of the presidential portraits and then some of the history portraits that I was going to use for other classes and things, not because I was like, ooh, old people. So I enjoyed myself, but I was like an hour in and out of the portrait gallery when you could probably spend days and days there. So I totally get that for sure. So awesome. I love that you find your own little space and you kind of go there and you love to spend your time there. That's a really great tip for people who are kind of like, I don't know what I would want to do. So speaking of kind of trips and, you mentioned going to the Louvre. So let's talk about some memories. What is your favorite trip memory?
Oh, that's a hard question. Probably going to London for the first time and just looking all around there and just seeing everybody after being in Europe where they speak different languages, being in a country that speaks English was so amazing.
I'm laughing, not because I think that's funny in a bad way, but it's so sweet. So we had an opportunity to hang out with some teens overseas this year, and we did London for 4 days and Paris for 4 days and London for another day. And so I said to the young woman that was with us, hey, which is better, London or Paris? And she was like, London. And I said, why? She said, because they speak English. Paris was beautiful and everything was wonderful, but she pointed out, which is I'm sure what the ultimate bottom line is, it's not that the people speaking other languages is bad in any way, but it's exhausting to try and find yourself around and get yourself around when there's a language barrier. And it definitely gives you a bigger appreciation for people who move to other countries and don't speak the language. But that's why I had such a big smile at that, because that is exactly the same thing that this other young woman said, which was was just so it was like a big relief. It was so relaxing to be able to communicate more easily with people, but still be somewhere new like London rather than, at home in the US. She lives in Portland. So kind of same idea of, kind of home place, So that's your favorite. So what did you love about London so much when looking around?
We went to this one park and I forget what the park was called, but it was this huge pirate ship. And wasn't Princess Diana's, it was Princess Diana's park. And it had this huge pirate ship and it was huge. There was one of I don't know, the things where you could look down and see things.
Like the crow's nest?
Yes, the crow's nest. And it was just like, it was so cool to like just like play around in that like big pirate ship. Like this was like, I don't know, when I was like 10. It was so amazing. When was it? I was 9.
Yeah. So perfect pirate ship time for you. I get it. Yes. I love that. I love that that's something that you found that was really special and really enjoyable. We go to London a fair bit because Mr. Stephen, my husband, is English and he lives south of London. So we tend to find ourselves in London more often than most other international visits, and probably more than most people that travel internationally, just because we end up there a lot for friends and family and things. So I do enjoy London. I think it's a really great city, so I'm not surprised at all that you found things that you really enjoyed there. So, all right. So if you feel comfortable sharing, what's your worst trip memory?
There are 2 really bad ones, but would you like me to share both of them or just one of them?
You can share both if you'd like to.
Okay, the first time was when we were in Istanbul and we were walking around and our street turned into a street market on Sunday. So we were walking around and we had just been in a store. My mom put her phone in her pocket and didn't zip it up. She was like, she had done it so many times. She always zipped it up and she didn't. So we were walking and I was in the front and it was getting a little bit crowded. So I turn around to see if they're still there. And this tiny child have shoved up against mom. And there's this man who's there. And he's also like shoved against mom to the back. So she's just like there. I turn around, I look at the little boy, and he's slipping the phone out of my mom's pocket. So I yell, "Mom, that kid has your phone." And at this point, like we were all in shock. So luckily it was just right outside of like a restaurant where we knew the owners. So they started picking up the boy and trying to find the phone. And they were like, "Where is the phone?" And he didn't have it. So he ran away. And I was like, oh my gosh, did I see wrong? I don't want to see wrong, because then that poor boy has just been accused of something that he didn't do. So my dad started picking the phone and there were tables. The little boy had threw the phone under the table so he could come back and get it later.
Wow.
So it's crazy that they're like trained to do that kind of stuff, and the kids are like having to do that because like that man, like he had like ran back to the man, like that man was like in it with him. Yeah. So it's so sad that those kids have to like do that kind of stuff, and sometimes they're forced to do it.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. So I can see why that's definitely one of your worst trip memories. What's your other one?
So we were in Paris and we were getting ready to go on our flight. We had been there for about, I don't know, 2 days. Maybe, I think we were maybe there for 2 days. No, wait, maybe we were there for a week. I don't know actually. But we had gotten on we had gotten to the airport. We were ready to get on our flight. We tried to put our baggage in, and they said that we couldn't. We're like, why? Like, why can't we do it? And we were 20 minutes late. So we missed our flight by 20 minutes. And we were trying to figure out what we were going to do. So we were like all like going around. It was like so freaky and so scary. We were over there for like, I don't know, like 30 minutes trying to figure out what to do, maybe longer. And I was just like in tears the entire time because we were going back to America. We were going to fly to New York and stay there for a bit. And it was kind of like a blessing in disguise because we figured, so we stayed in Paris for a few more days. We were like trying to find a hotel. So this dude actually had to switch around hotels, and he said that technically we're only allowed to let 5 people in. So if one of you sneaks past, it'll be fine. And my mom was not getting it, so we had to say it again. So eventually she just got it. And like one of us just snuck past. We didn't have to, but we did. But so then we went to London, and we had figured out that when we were going to be in New York, the underground shooting on like the bus, like with the dude with the gas mask, that had just happened in New York. So we would not have gone out of the apartment. We would have been stuck in the apartment. Like we would be way too scared to go out. So it was really scary when we couldn't get on, but it was a blessing in disguise.
So those are both 2 really, really good stories because first of all, you really highlight about how in many places, and there are people in the US who do the same. It's not like it's a, US doesn't do that and everywhere else does. But the idea that children are often, and adults too, but that children are often used in ways that are, either illegal or are made to do things that they don't want to do, and they don't necessarily know better not to do it. What are you going to do when the grown up in your life tells you to do these things, right? And so I think that that's a really good thing to remember when these things happen, because it's really easy to just kind of be like, about it. But, this doesn't happen here. But honestly, it does. We just don't always know about it. And depending on where you are, and you don't always know who's being made to do what and things like that. And so I think that that's a really important thing that you have highlighted. And safety is always something to be aware of when you're traveling. If that's something that makes someone anxious while they're listening to this podcast, like, oh, but the safety, stay with your group, make the best choices you can, and then you guys had made yourself comfortable in a place where the people knew you. And so they were able to help you. And honestly, Mr. Rogers says, in a time of like trial, always look for the helpers. There are almost always going to be helpers around, even when you don't know the helpers. You were fortunate that you knew some helpers there, but that's really important. So, and then your second story of missing the flight, but not, and then all of that, I can completely relate to that being very stressful. Where are we going to go? What are we going to do? That can be a very high stress situation. And it sounds like you and your family were able to work it out and then find the good things out of that came from it. So thank you so much for sharing those memories. Do you have any other funny or interesting stories that maybe aren't your best or your worst, but you'd like to share them with me?
There was this one. We were at a restaurant and it was my mom's birthday. So we were like at the restaurant, and this guy comes up to us. This was an all around Peru. It was like in Peru, and all around Peru there were always these people trying to sell stuff to you. Not as big as Istanbul when people would like lure you into the restaurants, but they were like people who they would like come up and try to sell you stuff. This guy, we had seen many before. This guy looked a little bit different. He had like huge prosthetic boobs and like a huge prosthetic butt.
Oh gosh.
It was absolutely crazy. And he tried to sell us the stuff, and my mom and dad were like, no. And then he looked at my mom and like he pointed to like he was just like doing weird things with his head. He was like saying like weird gibberish. And then after he left, we were like, well, mom's just been cursed.
Oh no. Because she said no.
Yeah, it happened that we actually lost her credit card that day.
Oh no. Oh my gosh. Oh no. Yeah, you gotta watch out.
She was cursed, so
right.
We don't know. We will never know if it has a connection.
Right, never. Oh my goodness, that is quite the thing. It's definitely worth always paying attention and make sure that you're not being cursed by a man speaking gibberish at you, for sure. So, are you an adventurous eater? Have you tried fun and exciting things, or do you like to keep it pretty traditional?
Well, when we were in the Amazon, we had like a trip to the Amazon, and there's one thing that my brother wanted to do for his birthday. Well, actually two. One, go fishing for piranha, and we ate piranha, so I guess that's one. He also wanted to eat grubs. So we hiked to this place. It wasn't far away, and we got some grubs, like some actual bugs. And my brothers, both of them, ate one alive. I did not want to eat one alive, so I ate one when it was cooked.
How was it?
The flavor was actually good, but there was a lot of different textures in one thing. Like it was like this weird shell, like outer like hard protective shell thingy. Like it wasn't hard.
Like it's a little exoskeleton, yeah.
Yeah, and there was like it was like gooey and cooked inside. It was a lot of different textures in one thing.
So, did you try escargot when you were in Paris?
Ooh.
Snails?
No, we didn't try that. I don't know if I will. I do want to, but I don't think if I'll ever try snails.
So they are a texture thing as well. as is sea slug. I have eaten sea slug. It tastes like salty jello, sea slug.
Ew.
Snails are kind of like a meaty texture. They're probably more similar to yours. They just don't have like an outside shell, but they cook them in garlic butter, and it's delicious. And I was good with it until one came out of its little shell and it kind of looked more like a snail. Like as long as I could be like, this is just a piece of meat and I'm just going to eat it, it was fine. But like this one little snail just looked like a snail, and I was like, stop looking at me like a snail. Like it was like, oh no. So yeah, I get the texture thing, and as long as I don't think too hard on it, I can definitely try most things. But yeah. Definitely one of the worst things that I've tried so far is they're called Rocky Mountain oysters.
Ooh.
They are bull testicles.
Oh. Okay.
But
Definitely not like
again, yeah, the taste was not off-putting. The thought was off-putting. So that's where it ended up kind of just being like, nope, too many textures, too many thoughts, too many things. It's all too much for me. I'll eat snails all day before I'll have Rocky Mountain oysters again, for sure. So, is there anything that makes you anxious when you travel? For me, I don't really love flying, but I'm going to do it anyway. Do you have any fear or anxiety that it comes up? Maybe heights, maybe new food, maybe not knowing where you're going or speaking the language. What is it for you, and how do you move through that? How do you work through those fears and anxieties?
I'm very scared. Like this is probably something that a lot of kids are afraid of. Like I have like a huge fear of either like my parents dying or like I like probably being kidnapped. That is a huge fear for me. I've actually seen like several people just like there was this one person on an airplane, and like when we were waiting for that flight, he was just like sitting like right in front of me where like was the entrance zone. He was just like staring at me, and I was like trying to talk to my like parents and my siblings. He just kept staring at me. Then when we got into the flight, we were having the flight, and there was somebody behind me, and it turned out to be that guy again. So my mind like it always like goes to like the worst, and like I'm always thinking of like these bad scenarios. So like I was like I don't want to get kidnapped and all this kind of. I was like really scared.
Yeah. So how are you able to like do self-talk, or what do you do to help yourself cope in those situations?
Well, if I'm in like an airport or anything, I know that there are like police officers everywhere. Like I like there are protection everywhere. I'm with my family, so and like I never go anywhere alone. So and if we're out in public, I just know like I know to like stay close to my family. If I'm getting a little bit ahead, I'll turn around and go back to them. Make sure that I'm not like in like this area which is like bad. Like my mom always knows to never go to an area that's dangerous. So we always try to go to the safest areas.
And thank you so much for being honest and open about these anxieties that you have. You know, your answers are very real and very raw. And I love that because, you know, I get a lot of podcast interviewees who are like, it's fear of heights or not speaking the language. But I think that a lot of us, even adults, have some of those same kind of primal fears that you're talking about having something happen to the people that you're with, the people that you love. Either they're with you or maybe they're at home. Like for me, it was really hard to live on the other side of the world, knowing that if something happened to my family at home, I couldn't get home very quickly. Like it would take days and days. So that's definitely something that is relatable for a lot of people. And being young and being a woman, that is always an anxiety as well, with safety and, you know, these different things. So I think it's really great that you allow yourself to be honest about those fears that you're having, but that you also take really practical steps to address those fears. And that's what I try and do. Like with flying, yesterday we flew, and as always, you know, what am I gonna do? I'm just gonna be there, and there's nothing I can do to make it any better. So it really helps me when the flight attendants are up and moving around, even when there's turbulence, and I can ask them questions. And I usually say, like, so yesterday I said, you know, this is pretty common. We're having some pretty rough turbulence. And she was like, this is nothing for me. I know it makes you nervous. She's like, but this is really, it's basically like flat for me, for someone who does this all the time. She's like, it's perfectly safe. This is how it was on the way down. You know, she was doing a flight back and forth. And I had a breathing exercise that I did and just different things like that to kind of do practical things to fight those fears. So I think you're doing all the right things by having some really practical techniques to deal with those anxieties because they're going to come either way. So you might as well try and move through them, right? And keep enjoying and keep seeing all the wonderful places. So that's excellent advice. Do you have something else maybe that you want parents or teachers to know when they are planning a trip for teens and tweens?
Um, a lot of times if a kid, like a lot of times you really should speak up if like you're going to an area that like if you're not comfortable with an area, I think you should try to like push yourself to go to that area. But if it's an area that like you know that like you're not gonna like, it's not like it might not be safe. But if it's an area like that, then you should definitely speak up like to your parent and say like, listen, this area, I'm scared to go here. I like don't want to go here. And the parent should always listen to that because children have real fears. They have anxiety. Like we have all these like fears like all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. So thank you so much. That's so good. So yeah, having adults listen and not just listen like, okay, okay, sure, and pat you on the head, but like, and not just try and downplay them, not just try and be like, you're fine, you're with me, I know what's going on. Like, I think it's really important that we listen to the intuition of people who are older and the intuition of people that are younger and kind of find a way to move through that with everybody together. So let's just say there's a teen or tween who's come across this podcast and they're not too sure that travel is for them. What would you say to them? What would be your advice?
Well, first, like I would want to know like what are you like? Is it just like you don't think this is your thing? Because if it's not your thing, then like if you don't want to do it and like you don't really have this desire, it's not your thing, then okay, it's like it's not your thing. Like I think you should try before you say it's not my thing. But if it's something of saying like I don't think I can do this, like this isn't like I don't want to do it. I don't like traveling. Well, if you haven't tried it, then you haven't tried before. You can't say that you don't like something if you haven't tried it. So even if you think like, oh, I can't do it, then again, push yourself to do it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Rilee. This has been a really wonderful time talking with you. I really appreciate you being on the podcast.
Thank you.
This has been an episode of For Traveling Teens, a podcast for teens and tweens who love travel, whether they're actively traveling or just dreaming. I'm Shae Pepper, the traveling teach. At the time of this recording, I am on a 5-year, 50-state road trip around the US, although with COVID, it's going to end up being 6 or 7 years. Darn you, COVID. But I travel full time with my husband, Steven, and our dog, Truffles. I'm a professional youth worker and online educator. I'm passionate about learning on location and want to bring that experience to as many young people as possible through my virtual field trips. To learn more about my travels and online classes, go to thetravelingteach.com. To follow Truffles' travels, our trip from her perspective, which I am sure is infinitely more interesting to most of you than I am, go to @TrufflesTravelsUS on Instagram. To be a guest, tween, or teen on the podcast, just reach out at thetravelingteach.com/contact.